What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing the Long Ring Long Land arc of the Water 7 saga of One Piece. Wow, that's a mouthful. Okay, what better way is there to start off 2023 than with another One Piece review? So I am so excited to be back into it. Hope everyone had a great holiday season. I know I sure did. So I will be completely honest with y'all. This was not my favorite arc. But there's a reason for that, and it's because I watched the anime first. So I've been catching up on the manga as I've been going through the arcs, and I was still ahead in the anime than I was in the manga by the time, I finished the G8 filler arc and I was moving on to Long Ring Long Land. So I was like, oh, I'll just go ahead and watch it and we'll go straight into the Water 7 saga. Why not? I will just say I loved the manga so much more than the anime. The manga was perfect for this arc. The anime expanded it far too much and kind of blew it, in my opinion. It was just way too much for me, but the manga was amazing. I appreciate this arc so much more in the manga after I read the manga than I did in the anime. So I am very thankful that I actually read the manga, and I am thankful for you guys for telling me to read the manga. So Long Ring Long Land is the first arc in the Water 7 saga, and y'all have all told me to start splitting up the sagas into arcs, and I am doing just that, and I'm so glad I am doing that because Long Ring Long Land seems like it's so completely and vastly different than Water 7, because I'm finished with Water 7 and I'm moving into Enies Lobby. This saga is making me struggle emotionally for a lot of different reasons, but none of them happen in this arc, so I can't talk about all that. So I'm very, very glad I am doing this arc separate from Water 7, so let's go ahead and just talk about it. So this is the official return from Skypiea, separate from the filler arc, and when they get back to the Blue Sea, it actually kind of skips away from our crew and goes to Doflamingo. And he is forcing Bellamy and Sarkis to fight each other for disgracing his flag because they are part of his crew, and they're forcing them to fight because of their loss to Luffy. And we don't get much on it. It's just kind of a small little bit where Bellamy is begging Doflamingo to not kick him out, and he's begging him for a second chance. And it just makes me a little more intrigued in Doflamingo's character because, first of all, what is his devil fruit if he is controlling, like forcing these two to fight each other with his power? What is his devil fruit power? His cruelty kind of makes me know why he's a warlord and why he was once one of the most feared pirates, I guess. So I really want to know more, maybe. I want to know what he's talking about when he's talking about the new age of pirates, and that intrigues me a lot, but I know we're not going to be getting it anytime soon, but I am interested in Doflamingo. As we're going back to the Going Merry, they encounter this ship that just has no order on it. They have no flag, no Jolly Roger, there's no captain, the crew is so disorganized, and they just have no idea what to do. And the Going Merry, which is being chased by these sea monkeys, I believe, they pass this other ship and it's like, hey, watch out. Sea monkeys go after the other ship and destroy him. And so that creates some sense of confusion, and Usopp starts to question it of why there would be a ship out here in the Grand Line without a captain, without any sense of organization to it, because it just doesn't make any sense. And that kind of leads up to meeting Foxy and the Davy Back fights and all of that. But before we get, one of my favorite parts of this arc, before we get to Long Ring Long Land, we meet Admiral Aokiji. Is that how you say his name? Aokiji? I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. We meet Admiral Aokiji, and he's bicycling on the ocean. He's looking at a picture of Luffy's bounty, and he's sighing, and he says, "Not an honest fellow in the whole family." What do you mean the whole family? I would understand if it was just if he knew Ace, but if he just knew Ace, Why would Aokiji say the whole family? Wouldn't he just say, oh, you know, it's just the brothers, it must be a brother thing? But no, he says the whole family. And with what, I want to talk about this more and we get more at the very end of the arc, but with what he says at the end of the arc, it makes me wonder more about Luffy's past. Because we haven't really gotten anything besides like his backstory with Shanks. We don't really get to see anything leading up to that backstory with Shanks or anything like that. So, Luffy, what you hiding? But I will get to that in a little bit because there's so much that happens in between those two moments, but I didn't want to forget to mention it because that caught my interest. I guess I wasn't really paying too much attention when I was watching that part in the anime, but when I read the manga and I caught that, I was like, whoa. But they get to Long Ring Longland, and it's this bizarre little island. I think there's 10 connected islands around that make up Long Ring Longland. I'm gonna trip over that one of these times and y'all are gonna laugh at me. It's fine. It is a place where everything grows ridiculously long. So there's these long animals, long trees, long fruits. Everything is just weirdly, misshapenly long. And that is when Luffy, Chopper, and Usopp, they're off going exploring, and they come across, the horse, Shelly, they come across these two very long bamboo shoots. Which, when I first saw the bamboo shoots, I guess I got very wary of it. I just remember from the movie Kong Skull Island, then those shoots were actually a spider. And so my thought was immediately that is a giant spider that is walking over them, and I was about to get freaked out. But it was just a man, so that was fine. Chops down the bamboo shoots, and we get introduced to Tonjit, this man who has been stuck on stilts for 10 years, and because it kept growing, there was no way for him to come down until Luffy knocked him off of him. So there's a lot of shenanigans that go on. I love Luffy and Usopp's interactions on this island, and especially when they're talking to Tonjit, the way he's trying to offer him like cheese that is so absurdly disgusting because he thought it was gonna be like milk or something, and it's just so nasty because it's so old. And Usopp, of course, is like, don't touch that. You don't know how bad this stuff is. It's been here for 10 years. I love the little shenanigans that go on between them during this interaction. But at the same time, we're also starting to get introduced to Foxy and the Davy Back fights because the Going Merry gets trapped in by the Foxy pirate ship. And another thing I found kind of interesting about this is when the pirates are explaining to our crew that, like, the rules of the Davy Back fight and what it is, everyone else kind of seems confused about the rules, but Sanji. Sanji isn't surprised by any of it. He actually knows the rules. Is it something that Zeph taught him? Because Zeph used to be a pirate? But Sanji has never been a pirate before joining Luffy's crew, so how would he know the rules of a Davy Back fight and know how sacred those rules are? Yeah, especially when they're like, well, once your captain agrees, everyone has to participate, that's the rule. And, you know, Nami's against this, obviously, but Sanji says, he's like, no, he's right, Nami. In the pirate world, it's an unwritten rule. Fleeing the challenge is the greatest shame a pirate can know. How does Sanji know that? Because from what we've seen, Davy Back things haven't been a thing in our crew, and they've never come across it. Nobody's ever mentioned it before. So how does Sanji know about Davy Back fights? Because unless I missed something up until this point, there's no reason Sanji would know about this, but he does, and I want to know why, because we already know Sanji is from the North Blue. He's not from the East Blue like the others are, so first of all, he had to come from the North Blue to the East Blue in the first place, and that might have been with Zeph, or something like that, or maybe he met Zeph in the East Blue, I don't know. Is maybe like Davy Back fights more of a common thing in the North Blue that maybe he's heard about more when he was a kid, or was he like the result, not the result of, but like, was he maybe a loss of a Davy Back fight at one point, and that's how he got to the East Blue? I'm not sure. It's just empty theories at this point. But it did kind of it surprised me that Sanji knew about the Davy back fights when nobody else did. At least that's what it. At least that's how I took it whenever I was reading it. Is that nobody really understood or knew what a Davy back was, besides Sanji, and that's got me thinking. But I don't know the answer. It's just theories. Besides that, we get introduced to Foxy himself after he shoots Shelly for no reason. And Luffy obviously is enraged and is kind of baited into agreeing. And of course, Luffy agrees to the fight because, of course, it's Luffy. He's going to, despite Usopp trying to tell him no. And it's like Zoro and Sanji already know that Luffy's going to agree to it. They're already prepared for it. So they agree to the Davy back fight, and there are 3 matches. There's a water race, a ring match, and then a one-on-one. And I will say I loved the matches so much more in the manga than the anime, because in the anime, like, things get stretched out naturally because you have to fill the time, and I get that. But when they added an additional 3 matches to this, and so much extra to each match that was just really unnecessary, that it took away from the actual Davy back fight. But in the manga, it was just like boom, boom, boom. Like, this is what happens, this is the fight, this is the race, this is what happens. And I liked that so much more. And it was so much easier for me to get through these 3 fights. And I love how they split them up, because when you do the water race, there's Robin, Nami, and Usopp. So they're all doing the water race. They're up against Portia. Of course, you know, one of the rules of the Davy back fight is that there can't be any cheating, but the Foxy Pirates are trash and they find a way to cheat anyways. So there's a lot of cheating involved, but I really did like the highlights of the water race. There was the usefulness from Usopp and from Robin, like the way Robin would just nonchalantly row with her extra hands and contribute as much as she could while still being just completely chill about everything. And you also had Usopp coming in clutch with the impact dials to give them that push to get them back into the race when they were falling so far behind. I really do like that you can still see the usefulness of the dials even after coming out of Skypiea, that they still serve a purpose, and showing that they're still here in Long Ring Long Land comes into play later in Water 7. One of the best things about the water race was we got to see Nami's cleverness and her usefulness as a navigator come into play, as she's able to read the currents, like when they come up against all those, like that coral reef or everything, and she's able to read which way the currents are going so that they can weave perfectly through this massive, like, storm of little whirlpools. I just thought that was so cool, and she's so quickly able to be like, oh, this is the best path to go to. If we go through here, we'll make it out, no problem. Nami is amazing, and I really, really love her. But of course, because they're cheating, Nami and Usopp and Robin end up losing because of Foxy. We get introduced to his devil fruit powers, but he uses the slow beam to almost stop time in a sense, but not completely. It just slows them down ridiculously for 30 seconds. So because of that, they end up losing. And because they lose the first one, Foxy ends up taking Chopper. Of course it would be Chopper. He's the cute fuzzy one who everybody wants to, like, cuddle and hug and everything. That moment when Chopper is up on that stool, or on that chair, and he is crying and saying, and trying to get Luffy to help him, because he's like, I wouldn't be a pirate, I wouldn't even be sailing if it weren't for you. The only reason I'm out here is because of you. Like, don't let them take me. That just tugged at my heart, because Chopper, I know I've said this in several of my other videos about One Piece, y'all are probably tired of hearing me say it, but Chopper is like a child to me. Like, just someone I want to protect, and to hear him just fully voice his feelings like that and really just break down crying over not wanting to leave this family that he's become part of, the only reason he's out at sea, was truly just heartbreaking to see. But I like Zoro's response. I think Zoro was very blunt with it, But Zoro's response to Chopper, because of course Zoro cares about Chopper too. He loves Chopper. All of them love Chopper. But I love that Zoro says, like basically tells him, stop whining. If you're a man, man up and own it. This is your choice. You chose to come out here with us. You have to be responsible for what happens. I love that bit because, yes, it's a little harsh the way Zoro phrases it, but it is a bit of encouragement to Chopper at that moment when he needs it. And Chopper's able to recognize it not as, you know, Zoro just dismissing him or his feelings. It's Zoro's way of encouraging Chopper, and Chopper's able to, like, pick himself back up and just be like, fine, I'll be a man about it, and just do whatever you want. I really liked that because it really shows that, one, the bond between the Straw Hats is super strong, that they can say something like that and they automatically get the message that is trying to be sent across. And because something like that, it just shows Chopper's character development, how he's growing as a character, as a person, through his journeys, through his travels with this crew. And after Chopper gets stolen, we get to the ring match, which Zoro and Sanji, their duo is hilarious to me. They are funny, and the way they bicker and banter and just constantly nag at each other is hilarious. I thoroughly love to see their dynamic because they just do not get along until it counts. They will only get along if they get super serious about something and it just something has to be done, which ends up happening in this match. Of course, you know, there's more cheating with the ref looking away, and as, you know, their opponents get all the weapons and everything. I love Sanji's response to it when he first sees the ref looking away and be like, oh, I just happened to not see it. And Sanji just kicks the crap out of the ref. I was laughing so hard because I would be just as angry as them. I would be like, what are you doing? This is obvious cheating. Pay attention. I just loved to see Sanji's response, and then as more cheating is going on, Luffy's anger and like Usopp trying to hold Luffy back is so funny. There were some really good comedic bits in this arc, and this was one of them. It's just their constant reaction to the cheating. That part was thoroughly just enjoyable, and I enjoyed watching it and reading it. At the very end of the ring match, you know, everything's going on. Zoro and Sanji are getting beat up pretty bad because of all the cheating that's going on. And at the end, their determination to win and just their resolve when they're both on the ground, they're like, and Zoro says, lend me your help for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds is all they need. 10 seconds of cooperation and it's over. And that's exactly what happens. Sanji's like, that's fine with me. And they end up winning. And they get Chopper back just like that. And then we get to the final of the Davy Back fights, the one-on-one, which is Luffy versus Foxy. And I didn't know that Afro Luffy was a thing until I saw it. But it was so much fun. It was kind of enjoyable to see Luffy just and Usopp just kind of being goofy with it, and the power of the afro. That was so funny to me. It was just a good bit of comedy. But yes, Afro Luffy was a thing and he was awesome. I loved seeing this fight. It was so fun to me. And I love that Usopp ends up being Luffy's corner man, whether it just be by chance because he happened to be with Luffy. I love Luffy and Usopp's dynamic. I think that in Long Ring Long Land, Oda decided to highlight Luffy and Usopp's bond and their dynamic a little bit on purpose. I love that he did that, but I hate it at the same time, but I can't say why because we're not talking about Water 7. So, my main takeaway from this 1v1 fight with Luffy, and again, I think this was very purposeful, was Luffy's determination not to let a crew member go. He was so determined. He says, I will never lose a crew member even if it kills me. And I love that because it just shows how much Luffy just loves and adores his friends, his crew members. That's his family. And it shows how determined he is to fight for them. It shows so much about Luffy's character. And I loved that grit and determination that he just kept getting up. He wasn't going to allow himself to be beat because he wasn't going to allow somebody else to take anyone he cares about from him. Because of that determination, and because Luffy is very smart when it comes to battle tactics and he learns very quickly throughout fights, he's able to gain the victory over Foxy, and they win, and Luffy demands the Jolly Roger from them. I'll say this again, but I loved the way the manga did it, because the anime did drag it out way too much. In the anime, it doesn't make sense what Luffy did, that he would intentionally not choose Chopper to choose the horse, when in the manga they weren't even really present at the fight or anything like that. So none of that ever made sense. It just seemed really weird in a way to draw out the fights. But I love in the manga how Luffy he's getting Chopper back, and then he's gonna get the Jolly Roger, and he presents the Jolly Roger to Tanjiro and says, hey, we beat them up. We beat the crap out of them just like I said we would. And that is actually where they get introduced to Aokiji. He is sleeping, standing outside of Tanjiro's hut. I don't understand how he can, but how he's sleeping is besides the point. That's really not important here. But we get Robin's first real look of just shock. Like, we've seen her express little bits of emotions here and there. Her face normally stays pretty much the same. It's very neutral. But here is the first time we really see Robin get shook up. Like, she is shaken by just the appearance of Aokiji, to the point she falls and is shaking as she's looking at him. This whole encounter, and Aokiji is so chill about it. He's just like, oh, I'm not here to capture y'all. I'm just here to confirm something. I wanted to see Robin, and I wanted to see you, Luffy. And Aokiji ends up not trying to fight them at first and offers Tanjiro a way to catch up with the rest of his nomads and bring him to the other island, because he has ice devil fruit powers that can freeze the ocean. To freeze the ocean, you know how like strong you have to be for that, because the ocean is so deep and vast, and it's just, and he said it was gonna last a week. He froze the ocean, that part of the ocean, for an entire week. I'm scared to learn more about Aokiji, but I want to learn more about him and how strong he is, because he seems so laid back and relaxed, but at the same time so scarily powerful. But after, Tanjiro's gone and they come across Aokiji again, this is where we get more on, why Aokiji is here. But we also get a little more on Luffy's past, because Aokiji was sitting there, he's like, you know what, I was just gonna let you go because I wanted to get a glimpse of you and Nico Robin, and man, Luffy, you're exactly like your Gramps. Wild with no self-control. How does Aokiji know him? Was Luffy's father or grandfather a notorious pirate? Maybe like Goldie Roger or something, because, the whole Monkey D. Luffy, Gold D. Roger, Portuguese D. Ace. Is that why he knows? Or is it because the only other way I could see it as an admiral knowing who Luffy's Gramps is if it's someone connected to the Navy. Because how else, if it's not a pirate, the chance that it would be just some random person in like a village that doesn't have anything to do with pirates or the Navy is very, very slim. So is Luffy's Gramps either like a famous notorious pirate that we haven't met or have met or have heard mentioned? Or is this someone in the Navy? I don't know, because we don't get an answer. But Luffy hears Aokiji say this and he starts sweating and he starts getting riled up just at the mention of it. Like, Luffy starts getting shook whenever Aokiji mentions his grandpa, and Aokiji owes a debt to his grandpa, and it'd be very rare for an admiral of the Navy to owe a debt to a pirate. I mean, I guess Kobe owes a debt to Luffy, and Kobe's now in the Navy, so maybe it was something similar like that, but it would be more likely that if Aokiji has a debt owed to his grandpa, he would be in the Navy somehow. We don't get any more than that because Aokiji is just like, you know what, I've seen some groups before that have caused trouble for the Navy. And this kind of surprised me, but also makes me very excited to see what's gonna happen. Because Aokiji says, I've faced many ruthless villains over the years and you guys are starting to scare me. For an admiral, one of the only 3 admirals of the Navy, one of the strongest people we've ever seen so far, to be scared of our little group is very fascinating to me. Because it's not just about the bounties that are on the group, because we have Zoro, Luffy, and Robin. Aokiji right now is focused more on Robin, but for him to specifically say that you guys, like all of them, their group is scaring him, that makes me so curious as to what this group could develop into. Because our guys, like, they're good, but they're not good per se because they are pirates. So how intimidating, how threatening is this group actually going to be if you already have one of the admirals scared by what you're becoming? That kind of put things into perspective for me of just how intimidating and how imposing the Straw Hat crew is. Because I hadn't really thought about it before. Like, even though like I knew we were a strong crew, we had all these great victories, we had some great people in our crew, I never really thought of how threatening they were to the Navy and to the Navy specifically, and how much, if they continue to grow and develop as they have with everybody they've taken out so far, how much more threatening they're going to be in the future. It was a really interesting point that Aokiji brought up. I just want to see where it goes from there. But we also get more focus on Robin and get a little bit of her past here, as Aokiji says that she's gone away from him once and he doesn't intend to let that happen again, and basically says that Robin is going to burn those around her, that she is destined to make others around her fall. His words rattle Robin to her core, to the point that she can't even really react rationally. She tries to attack him and just says, if you're gonna capture me, then just capture me already. Which isn't something Robin would normally do. Like, she is acting very rashly at this point, and Aokiji freezes her completely and tries to break her like ice statue, but Usopp and Luffy save her, and Luffy sends Usopp and Chopper off to the ship to save Robin and to get her unfrozen. And that is when we get this Admiral versus Captain fight, and Luffy sends Sanji and Zoro away after they get like some injuries with the ice on their arms or legs, and he sends them away and says, I'm gonna fight him one-on-one. And they listen to him and they go, and this is where we really see that tensions are starting to rise on the ship with our crew, because when Zoro and Sanji get there and they get rid of the ice and everything and they're on the ship, Usopp starts going, why would you listen to Luffy on that? Like, you shouldn't have left him. And Sanji's just like, it was the captain's orders. And Usopp's not having any of that, and they start getting into this little heated fight. And Zoro's the one that's having to stop them and said, this is a crucial moment for our crew. Zoro says whether he did it on a whim or not, be prepared for the worst possible outcome. Luffy loses very fast to Aokiji. Aokiji freezes him, but he spares Luffy because he says, oh, well, I owe you for taking down Crocodile, so I'm not gonna kill you yet. And he just leaves like that because he's like, oh, well, you said one-on-one, so that means I technically can't fight any of your crew. So he leaves just like that. They're able to get Luffy and like get him unfrozen and everything, and Luffy seems pretty unbothered by it at the time, but some of that tension still remains there, especially with like some of the stuff that Usopp is saying like towards the end. And he's like, well, all I did was run. I didn't do anything. And Zoro's just like, oh, well, go to sleep. You're tired. And you can tell there's just some like tension in the air with like Robin waking up, them asking her how she's doing, Sanji asking if she wants anything to eat or drink. There's a certain atmosphere in the air now after that encounter that wasn't there before. The arc kind of ends off with them going to water, or with them heading towards Water 7. They reach the lighthouse and is introduced to the Puffing Tom. It's kind of where that arc ends off, right before they head to Water 7. The takeaways I have from this arc is that it's good lore introduction to the Davy back fights. That in itself is a very interesting concept with the rules that go along with it. And it raises some stakes for something serious to possibly happen in the future. If, you know, there's actually a serious opponent who doesn't cheat or anything or use cheap tricks, if there's a serious opponent that would challenge our crew to a Davy back fight that could actually pose our crew some serious threats. So that is some interesting lore, and I want to kind of know more about it, but I don't know how much we're ever going to get on Davy back fights. And we got a lot of good information and a good hints at Luffy's past and Robin's past, so I'm very interested to see where that goes. I think where it's heading, there's going to be more focus on Robin's past than Luffy's at the moment, just because Robin kind of took the front and center towards the end of the arc. So I know we're going to continue with that into Water 7. But I want to know more about Luffy, and I still am curious. If I misunderstood, please let me down below so I don't have these little pea brain theories going forward. How does Sanji know about the Davy back fights? Is it just a thing that all pirates know about? And I just misunderstood that he was the only one who understood? If y'all would clear that up for me without spoiling anything down below, I would much appreciate that. Because I'm very curious at this point about how Sanji knew the rules, but nobody else really seemed to. And we focus more on like the problems with the Going Merry again and needing a shipwright, which is why they're going to be heading to Water 7 in the first place. And it also gives rise to a true threat and enemy that we face, which is Aokiji. We have never faced somebody of this caliber before. Like, Crocodile wasn't a very intimidating opponent. Enel was a very intimidating opponent, but it was nothing like this. Aokiji just has a different presence, a different feel about him that makes him feel far more intimidating and threatening than anybody they faced in the past. I'm very excited to see where these little tidbits that we've gotten will take us into the next arcs and sagas. I did enjoy this arc so much better in the manga. The manga was so good. All in all, I did enjoy this arc. It was a good little arc with some really nice tidbits of information hidden in there between like the fights and everything. So I am very excited to see where we go next. I want to learn more about so many of these different characters. I'm just waiting for the moment I finally see it happen. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I will be doing Water 7 arc next, and I'll probably be doing another video in between to give myself some time to get everything together for Water 7 because it was a very big arc. But I'll probably do either something Skippy related or manga related in between, so be on the lookout for that. I will try to maybe possibly somewhat get a schedule of what I plan on doing for the month. Maybe starting in February, because I'm already a little late on that and I haven't completely finalized what I want to do for January. So maybe starting in February there will be a schedule of what I plan to do for the month. So be on the lookout for that. But thank y'all so much, and I will see y'all in the next video, scholars. Bye!